Okay, so from the extraction of the nodes, right, we know that SSD has a main drawback. Okay, after people use SSD for quite some time, is known as the longevity of the SSD technology, right, which is also called the SSD endurance, which means how long can it last. Now, it is not calculated by time. It is calculated by the amount of writing uh, to the SSD. So after this very large amount of writing is reached, the SSD cannot write anymore. All right? And the SSD that you can't write to is basically not very useful. But it's a very large number. All right? If you look at your notes, all right, 20 gig, right, writing operation per day over a period of 3 years. After that, you hit the SSD endurance, you can't write it anymore. Now, so if you take this and you multiply, you will see it's a very big number. Why is this not suitable for server, and why are we still using it? Well, firstly, because uh, in at home or in small offices or in a workstation, do you write 20 gigabyte of data per day, every day? But if you do, it will only last you 3 years, plus minus. Okay, chances are we don't, right? Because 20 gig of data is actually quite large, right, for normal office usage. But if you think about server don't serve one person. A server can serve 800 people, maybe more, depending on how big is a server. So if you put a SSD into the server, right, and it serves 800 people, 800 people are using this server. That means you can hit 20 gig writing per day very easily. Actually, you can exceed, right? Because the number is very big. Now you multiply your writing per day for 800 people. So it will be less than 3 years. Or it will actually be very, only a few years, or less, definitely less than 3 years. Right? And of course, if you have a server that serves thousands of people, right, like one of those game server or cloud server that have a lot of user, then it's going to be very short period of time before you hit the SSD endurance number. So when you hit, you can't write anymore. Right? So that defeat the purpose of having a SSD in the server. Right? One of the strength of the SSD is speed. Okay, one of it. Okay, but if you compare speed and data, well, the company will choose data over speed. So I prefer to use traditional, right, hard disk drive, which don't have a endurance problem. It doesn't have a limit that we are aware of. Right, sacrifice a bit of the speed, but keep the system running. That is why people still use hard disk drive for server.